Our last panel is actually a spotlight from the Correctional Management Institute at Sam Houston State. We have Erin, Orrick, and Christie Davidson, who will be, talking about the Correctional Management Institute, and it's being led by our own Amy Murphy. Amy is a longtime ACER. I don't know, Amy, 10 years, 8 years, who knows? You might wonder why we're featuring a sister institution like ACE, but at another university. And that's because as ACE, we always roll with the punches. And one punch we have coming up is that Danielle will be joining the faculty at Sam Houston State this summer. So she'll be walking the road and working with Erin and Christie, as well as with ACE. So anyway, I'll let Amy take it away. Thank you very much for joining us today, Christie and Erin.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone for sticking with us for the final panel. So we'll be talking about the Correctional Management Institute of Texas Reflections with Dr. Erin Orrick and Christie Davidson. And as Dr. Taxman said, they are with Sam Houston University, and we'll have the pleasure of working with Danielle coming very soon. So I would like to first just invite you to introduce yourselves, please.
Okay, so I'm the assistant director for our institute, the Correctional Management Institute of Texas, and we are tasked with providing continuing education and professional development for people in the field already employed. So a lot of leadership training for sheriffs, for jails, for probation, adult and juvenile, for the whole TDCJ. We have great relationships in the field, and we try and stay open to whatever their needs are. And we provide every level of training. We also assist the state in certifying probation officers for the state here on campus and across Texas as well. And we have the pleasure of having Erin as our research director.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to speak with you all today. As was mentioned, I'm Erin Orrick. I'm associate professor here at Sam Houston State University in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology, and I serve as the research director for CMIT. So in that role, mostly I serve kind of as a liaison between our faculty and then all of the correctional agencies that CMIT works with. And it goes both ways. So oftentimes we'll get requests for evaluations or requests for research support. And so either that's things that we can handle kind of in-house with the research associate that we have in CMIT as well, or we'll involve our faculty in those endeavors as well. And in the other direction, we often have faculty who are interested in various research projects. And so I assist them in making connections with CMIT as well as their research partners in the field in order to address whatever questions they want or get access to the groups that they need in order to answer their questions.
Great, thank you. And I just want to remind everybody that you can pop your questions in the Q&A box if you have any. So could you talk a little bit about, it sounds like you have a lot of great partnerships going on and you're working with different organizations. How do you go about setting your research agenda?
So again, I think that's largely driven kind of both by faculty initiatives as well as kind of the requests that we get from the field. And so me personally, my research agenda has largely been shaped by a lot of these connections. It has given me exposure to different areas in the field of corrections that I wouldn't have had access to prior or really thought of getting involved in prior to being in this position. And so, really we have to be responsive to the agency needs that we get. And so it really has opened those doors. We do try and we've been setting kind of yearly, I guess now, meetings with our faculty to kind of get them all in one room to talk about kind of some of the interests, some of the kind of important topics that we're seeing in the field in order to discuss how CMIT might be able to assist in helping them reach those goals. And again, as I mentioned, we also have requests that come in from our research partners. And so a lot of them are driven by their, getting federal funding, and they have an evaluation component. And so some of it gets, so I guess to answer your question broadly, some of our research agenda is kind of driven by requests, and some of it comes internally and naturally, and it will kind of shape and evolve over time.
Thank you. So it's certainly an eventful time to be working in corrections and corrections research. So could you talk about some positive changes you've seen during your tenure with CMIT with regards to things like staff training, staff interactions with people under supervision, or having different programming available?
Well, as far as, we try and stay open. Of course, we have our regular trainings that we have to not have to, but we have the ability to provide, but we also try and stay open to different trends and so forth that the agencies are needing to meet as well, because none of our training is mandated. So that gives us the flexibility to really kind of ebb and flow with what's needed in the field and to address anything that a certain agency is looking for. Besides our regular trainings, we also have 9 different professional associations that we manage. And so besides our regular agencies, that gives us a whole nother community to network with and have, reach and out to as well. And so we really just try and stay open and listen, just as Erin said, with research in general, we try and do the same with what their training needs are and requirements.
Just to add on to that, as an example, we're working with the National Jail Leadership Command Academy, which works with CMIT in order to train management or kind of mid-level management in jails. And our research associate in CMIT did a kind of mixed method evaluation of, he interviewed supervisors of those who attended these trainings in order to assess kind of what positive impact, or I guess, and negative impacts these trainings have had on the agencies themselves. And spoiler alert, I just read kind of a draft of his paper, and overall the responses are overwhelmingly positive of the impact that these trainings have had on jail leadership. And so those are kind of some of the connections that we see that are exciting to show like that these trainings do have positive impact for these agencies.
And for sheriffs, we're not about to tell a sheriff that there's a mandated training. That is not going to happen. So something that we have seen, like Erin said, with National Jail, a lot of these agencies are kind of organically just making that an unsaid kind of requirement for promotion for those agencies. But we would never say it is mandated.
Oh yeah, it must be very exciting to see those changes happening in real time. Going back to the symposium theme, can you talk a little bit about your vision for using your role to advance racial and social justice within your organization?
So I know we, like I said, try and stay open to the field and their needs, and we never want to provide a training that just checks off a box. That's not our goal. And so something that I've been with the Institute for 28 years. So something that I am really glad to see us doing is taking part in a lot of tough discussions with the field and seeing what they want as a deliverable from us. How can we help them? Not just a training to check the box, but something that can really be impactful and helpful. I know at the Institute, we hosted a racial justice summit and invited sheriffs and wardens and regional directors, and we had probation chiefs to really have hard conversations about what we could do and what that could look like. And so we're going to start a second phase of that. In fact, we just had conversations with two of the sheriffs that attended that training this week. We spoke with them and, just trying to see what would help them in their agency to continue that. Is it just a round two? Is it bringing that whole, because it was such a unique training, is it bringing that together for a whole nother set of their staff members? But we're really starting to implement different training components in some of our smaller as well as our large conferences to really address that incarceration inequities and disparities, roundtables with that with our probation chiefs, just really trying to make sure that we are putting those components in our trainings.
In addition to that, I'd say a lot of kind of what we see comes from some of the research initiatives that are coming from our faculty and our students as well. So questions that they want to have answered. And we are seeing a trend, at least in a lot of the local agencies that we've been working with, that they are far more receptive to trying to address, some of these harder questions. And so, it's again, things that we keep pushing. And because of the close network and the history that CMIT has with these agencies, that it kind of opens up a lot of doors that I think otherwise maybe some of our faculty and students wouldn't have access to.
Yeah, very interesting. I know we have a number of students participating today, and of course, students are really crucial to the work that we do at ACE. So can you talk about how you engage students in research and in corrections reform?
Sure. So CMIT, historically, has funded some of our graduate assistants. So that's kind of one, I guess, real tangible way that they've engaged students in some of the research. But we regularly get requests, as I mentioned, for various research or evaluation. And so oftentimes those are kind of unique opportunities that we can bring in students in order to help, answer some of those questions or get involved in some of those programs, because it not only gives them the experience in working with an agency, but also, to actually follow the research process as well. We also have, I think, kind of a unique opportunity here as well that really came out of some of the connections that CMIT has with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and that we have a research associate position that is actually assigned and works in TDCJ in their Office of Division of Research and Development. It's a relatively new office or division within the organization, but it speaks to, I guess, how such a large corrections agency is actually looking towards kind of research and reform, that they've actually stood up this division on research and development. So we have a current PhD student who works in that department, as well as one of our recently graduated PhDs was hired on full time to work in that division as well. And so those are some of kind of the pipelines that we've been trying to establish in order to give opportunities to our students that I think are rather unique to what we have here.
Yeah, those sound like really exciting opportunities for students, and that will really help them post-graduation. We have a question from Dr. Roods in the chat. What a great bridge between education, research, and practice. How can other academic research units or centers perhaps use your model to provide research and evaluations for practitioners such as those working in carceral or community corrections? And what have you found that works particularly well to help practitioners trust you to do this work with them?
As far as trust, I would have to say, we've been training their staff for, like I said, over 20, plus years, over 28 years. We know these people, we know these probation chiefs, we, know these sheriffs, we have interactions with them, we're at conferences with them, we're at different functions with them, we're running their associations. So that constant connection to the field just kind of organically builds that trust. And I mean, we've had different types of institutes come in and visit with us from out of state. And it really is a unique CMIT is just a unique entity, in the college at Sam Houston and within CJ. It's just really a unique situation. And we've had, like I said, other states come in and try and duplicate it, at least different pieces of it. And it is hard, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so you've been with the organization for a long time, Christie. Have you, have you seen that like a change in that level of trust during your tenure?
No, I wouldn't say a change in it, because we've been able to sustain that trust and continue our relationships with all of the agencies. So we're really fortunate.
So we have a question from Dr. Taxman in the chat. She says, the prior panel was on the misuse of the measure of recidivism. So what opportunities are there at CMIT to disseminate information about proper techniques to measure recidivism? And can you work with state agencies around this?
That is a great question. And it's something that I think I've struggled with, and especially some evaluations with TDCJ. They measure recidivism by reincarceration. And that is the way that they measure recidivism. So even in some of the final reports that we've worked on with them, it's been trying to open up their thought process about how they define success. And what else we might be able to include. So I think a lot of it is kind of baby steps and having these conversations in the work that we do with agencies, and saying, yes, we can include your measure of recidivism, but how about we also think about these other things that aren't just purely defined by reincarceration after 3 years. So it is a work in progress, and especially some of the smaller agencies that we've worked with may be a little more open to conversations about defining success. And so it's kind of, I think, just every time we can have a conversation, we have to push that agenda to make sure that they're thinking about kind of their outcomes in different ways in order to kind of move away from that binary recidivated versus not, however they choose to define it. But it is a regular conversation that we just have to keep having and pushing.
Interesting. So also to go back to an earlier session, some of the earlier panels have talked about language. So, why it matters, as well as the limits of changing language in terms of, how it can affect change. Do you have any thoughts on, the language you've used? Has that evolved over time? And, kind of what role does that play for you?
For me personally, it does. It has evolved. It's even in the, I've been here for 9 years. I've been in this position for 4. We've been, I think 4. We've been, kind of changing and it's having conversations. Oftentimes it's difficult with such a large agency as the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, as far as how they define individuals or the language that they use. For example, I had a paper recently on immigration, and they still define them as illegal aliens. And so when you're trying to use their policy, those words are still included. And so again, it's just trying to have conversations with the groups to see like how we can, move the agency forward. I think it's harder with a big agency than it is some of the smaller, more local agencies and groups.
Excellent. So unfortunately, we only had a very short period of time. Do you have any kind of closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Really, just thank you for having us on. And Danielle, we look forward to meeting you in person.
I'll be there soon.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. You guys are doing work that's very similar to the work that we do at ACE, and I thought it was good for people to know that there's not just 1 or 2 of us. There's more groups out there doing this kind of work and partnering with agencies in ways that can be really helpful. I know you have a great experience in Texas, but you find that it's different all around the US, right? When I go to other states, correctional facilities often won't talk to university researchers or people that work in research. Like they're just like, we are the aliens, right? Like we're not sharing our stuff with you. And I think it's important that other states and jurisdictions see places like CMIT and like ACE and say, oh, maybe, maybe we can build a relationship with them that would be mutually beneficial to it and really help us all move forward.
Right.
Thank you so much. I loved having you guys here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Christie and Erin. And as we, begin to do more events, I'm sure that we're going to be doing a lot of cross events between the institutions. So we look forward to that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Great job as well. Thank
So
you.
we appreciate your participation.